Good morning, Bitcoiners. Hope you're doing great. Hope you're doing great. Let me see if I'm all set up here. I did not check. There we go. Audio is good. I checked it. I checked it now. We're doing good. B for victory. Bomatan. Good morning, Bitcoiners. TGIF. It is Friday. You were right. Ben, what's up, my man? Good morning, team. Indeed. Bon matin à tous. I sincerely hope everyone has the opportunity to lift any negative energy into productive means throughout their days, such as your community, family, Bitcoin, and yourself. That's what we're talking about today. That's exactly what we're talking about today. So thank you, Where Do I Sats? Time for Moscow time. Not quite yet. We have to acknowledge a few things about the nature of our reality, which is the sun has risen, right? And Bitcoin's running. So all that's left for us to do is have a coffee and talk about what's new and talk about Moscow time. Gene, good morning, nation state Bitcoin. We are a country. Indeed. We're going to talk about that today too. Robert, good morning. What time is it? It is Moscow time. We're there. Good morning, Habib. Hope you're doing great. Gray, or is it Greg or Gray? Yeah, Gray. I want to break up. We love breaking up. El Salvador Independence Day. I didn't know that. That's amazing, Thomas. Thanks for the info. I was unaware. Good for El Salvador. The salvation is upon us. It's breakup time, everyone. Indeed. So we're trying this out again today. I found out, I think, what we did wrong yesterday. I had it too bright. I had to lower the brightness, and it came through. We're not sure if this is going to work, right? We're just experimenting. We're seeing what we get out of it. We got a pretty good thumbnail today, so at least that's coming in, right? That the thumbnail thing works. I think it's going to work, so let's try it out, right? Let's try it out. Let's head right into Moscow time and see how it goes, right? Here we go. This one's pretty good. In case you were wondering, right? The thing about us, we love cats and dogs, and we love having our pets, right? Everyone loves pets, right? We all love pets. But it turns out that the Guardian believes that the case against pets is upon us, right? Is it time to give up our cats and dogs? I don't know. Global warming, guys. I don't know if you need pets so much as you need to worry about the amount of CO2 in the air, right? A growing number of people argue that owning pets is unethical. A growing number. It's like everyone I meet is like, did you know it's unethical to own pets? It's really bad. And that animals can never really have a good life in a human home. They can't have a good life, guys. It's much better in the wild. I love seeing dogs when I go to countries and there's wild dogs everywhere. It's one of my favorite things because I see how happy they are when they're all wild. It's so wonderful to see wild dogs eating garbage and themselves, right? That's always one of my favorite things. I love going to countries and watching dogs kill each other. It's just awesome, right? Who doesn't love wild dogs? Who doesn't love it, right? And forget about cats. I mean, they sit around in your house all day. They're much better outside on the street. Much better. They're so pleasant when they're on the street, right? Because their lives, right? Like they're better. Who could doubt it, right? Who could doubt it? So there you go. Lives better when that stuff happens, right? All right, let's see how this works now. I have to actually do that to switch. Okay. This one's pretty good, right? I'm a big fan of this one. This comes from Canada, right? They're worried about, you hear all these stories about they're banning books in Florida, they're banning books in California, right? Everyone's upset. Conservatives, they don't like the books for kids. Well, in Canada, they did something a little different, right? So they said, well, we don't like the books either for kids, but the ones they don't like in Canada are a little different, right? So what happened in Canada? Empty shelves with absolutely no books. Students, parents question school board's library weeding processes. Books published in 2008 or earlier removed from school library amid confusion around new equity-based process. So any book that isn't DEI or whatever, anything that comes from before 2008, bad in Canada. They're not in the libraries anymore. Canada continues to be just one of the greatest places. If we didn't have Canada, we wouldn't know what to do. We wouldn't know what to do, right? You got to do the opposite. This one remains one of my favorites, right? This woman she's going to keep running. There's a, so it wasn't a leaked porno, right? It wasn't a leaked porno. Okay, guys, like she didn't leak a porno. She was just looking for some tips with it, and it was her husband. So come on, what's wrong with that, right? You just bang your partner, your husband, your wife on camera and make a little tips, right? It wasn't a lot of money, but don't hold that against them. They're just nice people, right? And here they say, right, it's not about we don't want prostitutes to be politicians, right? I accept prostitutes as politicians. I'm not here to argue against that, but she's making a much stronger point, right? What's her point? Well, she's saying that the truth is Susanna Gibson refuses to drop out of the Virginia race after videos emerged of her performing sex acts with her husband for online tips. But the Democratic candidate and mom of two says Republicans are trying to silence women. Of course they are. Ooh. Sorry about that. So, sorry, we had a broken glass out there. It's clearly that they're trying to silence women. Everybody sees it. Everybody can see it, right? It's just clear. It's clear. And this one's pretty good too, right? This is our last one, right? This comes from our favorite, The Atlantic, right? This is Elon Musk. Demon mode activated. Demon mode activated. A conversation with Walter Isaacson about his new biography of Elon Musk, World Builder and World Destroyer. It's too good, right? It's too good. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? All right, let me know how that went. I don't know if it. We're not quite there. Oh, he's got two cats, Habib. You unethical. Need a bigger flat screen? Yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe. Robert. We're trying. Modern book burning. Is that Macho Camacho? So I want Macho Camacho back in the race. I really do. Right? I really do. I really want Macho Camacho to run in this one. So there we go. Let me guess. The racist ones. Yeah, it's all the racist books. It's all the racist books in Canada. Those are the ones getting banned. So what we got is our theme for the day, right? Bitcoin's invisible hand can claw back the claws of the state. Yeah, Justin says, I need a copy. I do have one. I'll use this one. We're trying something new for season 3, guys. We're not quite there, but thanks for sticking around for the experimentation. We're not sure if this is going to work. We're trying something out, right? We're just trying it out. So Elon, in this case, right? Elon has, 1 second. Just a second. Mazel tov. Yeah, everyone's okay with glasses. I'm just telling them to, there you go. Horoscope is going to work. Yeah, we're going to get there. We're going to get there. All right. So our theme today is the Bitcoin's invisible hand versus the claws of the state and clawing back the administrative state. And really it is that, right? I got the line from the Javier Milei interview with Tucker Carlson where he talked about that, right? The claws of the state versus the invisible hand. It's very easy to understand the case for extending the state and extending the claws of the hand because there's a false promise there. And people can't really see the invisible hand of the market. So, of course, they want something top down and over the top, and that results in what we've got. So what he mentions in that interview is that it was the frog boiling scenario in Argentina where they didn't notice at first, but over time, the water increased and suddenly you're a bunch of frogs in a hot boiling pot of water. And so his whole idea here is that it's the end of the road for it. They're going to turn things around. And we're going to talk about that interview. But first, even just to understand where we're coming from with the claws of the state and our abilities to overcome what it is and what the invisible hand even looks like, right? It's invisible. So what does it look like? So the Elon Musk thing sort of starts to bring it into focus, right? So first of all, he's getting all of these criticisms, which we've seen, right? He was in China, of course, and people were not happy about that, right? You've got folks here saying that Elon Musk drew scathing criticism from the government of Taiwan after he described the self-ruled island as China's equivalent of Hawaii, with the Taiwanese foreign ministry implying the Tesla CEO had sold himself to Beijing, right? So some people saying that. And then, of course, the story that I see, right, is all the attacks on Elon and all the stuff that's going on with the multiple legal cases against him now, SpaceX, Tesla, the glass house, the hiring of refugees for rocket science. He didn't hire enough refugees for rocket building. And now this whole war push, right, that he's a traitor. And you even had a journalist yesterday who was yelling at him, right? Your ego has cost how many lives of Ukrainians? They were yelling at him across. Sky News, of course, published this, right? Oh my gosh, someone heckled Elon Musk, therefore it's an article. But the important thing that I'm seeing is in many ways, and I think what we see with the change in people even supporting Trump through Elon being sort of a surrogate now that has brought Trump a little more unanimous support, comes from things like the All In podcast, right? Jason Calacanis, super anti-Trump. He's not really a Trump fan, I would say, right? Chamath Palihapitiya, like these aren't guys who were lining up to support Donald Trump last time. And they're there, of course, with David Sachs. But this group is part of the effort that Elon had to even get in control of X. The All In podcast guys help support it. They've been helping him run the company. David Sachs is now getting called the they're calling him the henchman, right? So David Sachs is now the henchman for Elon Musk. This is David Sachs' comment on it. In accordance with the MSN's new Elon is a supervillain narrative, I've been promoted from advisor, because he was an advisor for a while, but now he's a henchman, right? So he's a henchman now. So David Sachs, who I continue to say is one of the biggest mistakes I've ever made in even eyeing up someone. You know, he was asking to speak at consensus events when I was programming those for CoinDesk for years. I thought he was just some VC guy who was another liberal and was just going to come up and talk about, you know, getting some money together to, you know, redo Uber or some shit, right? I didn't understand just how based he was. In the 2020 election, when he came out really in support of Trump, I realized right away that David Calacanis, I had it wrong. I don't usually get it that wrong, but I'm happy to admit I had David Sachs wrong. Jason Calacanis, still in the middle. I had David Sachs completely wrong, and he continues to be, I think, one of the heroes of World War III. He continues to state things clearly. He continues to not show any signs of being rolled by psyops or anything like that. He seems like a stable force in the wind, right? You know, you get all these crazy things happening, and he just seems to be opposing it with a very sure-footed way. So, when I see this kind of change, right, when I see this new way of dealing with things, and when I see Elon Musk getting attacked, but at the same time, people not kind of buying it, right, it makes me think that the capacity to even stunt Elon Musk isn't there anymore, right? We've sort of exaggerated, or at least we've been left to our own imagination about how powerful the claws of the state are. Now they're going to keep going on Elon Musk, and I think the efforts are real. You know, you even got the yeah, this thing is not working as well as I'd hoped, but you know, you even get this from the New York Times where they're talking about the aliens again, right? And they're trying, right? Mummies from outer space. Mexico's Congress gets a firsthand look in a jaw-dropping presentation, right? According to the New York Times, a jaw drop. Everyone's jaw dropped. Oh, you know, they've even got today now. These guys are reporting that scientists have debunked this. Scientists debunked this. All right, scientists debunked this alien. You needed scientists. This is another one of those things that sort of lowers our appreciation for scientists. My children knew this was a game. That they weren't aliens, that they were made of papier-mâché, right? It was obvious to whoever needed help on this, it's so fake, and that they're even looking at it this way. Now, I continue to say that these are pen tests, right? Penetration tests to see how far into the mind they can actually get. If you're a magician, right? You know how magicians or hypnotists even do their shows, right? They want to suspend the disbelief, or at least create a scenario where they know their audience is going to be susceptible to believing it. There's a bit of timing involved when it comes to magicians. They time things, right? You don't just say, well, this is the order of my tricks today. Sometimes you see the audience isn't quite lulled enough for you to pull off a major trick. So you got to wait till you do the major trick. And that's one of the big reasons why these magicians are absolute performers. It's always the same trick. It's always sleight of hand. It's always look over here while I'm doing this, right? All magic is that. If you don't know the first thing about magic, you're going to be very susceptible to believing it, right? So that's how it works. And the capacity for this trick to work has to be tested by the people who are trying to conjure the magic. So when I see these cases, when I see the aliens cases getting debunked, to me, I say, oh, that looks like Elon is going to live another day. Right? That's I'm not saying it's it's logical, right? I'm 100% guessing that these alien stories are really about testing the capacity to hypnotize and testing the capacity and the penetration testing of how much of the population can be duped. Because again, there must have been 25% of Americans during World War II who said, that Franklin Roosevelt, I swear to you, he's a cripple. I swear to you, he can't walk, right? And they kept that a secret. That no one in America knew for all of FDR's presidency, his 5 terms as presidency, that he was a cripple. No one knew. They were hidden. It was hidden, right? And so everyone had some crazy uncle who was like, that son of a bitch can't walk. I know it, right? So what he did was he had his Franklin Roosevelt had his son always next to him, and he would just use his son as a crutch. And they practiced it together over years. So the son was a very big guy, and the son would lift him with the arm like this. And so Franklin would be able to stand up from his chair or sit down from his chair, but he would always hold on to his son, who was, a really big guy. So, for years this went on. And it didn't matter that 25% of the population thought it, right? Now, it didn't matter when we're just talking about a wheelchair, and that's just optics, and that was sort of the eugenic stuff at the time. It looked weak, right? You didn't want a weak thing. But what we saw with John F. Kennedy when they assassinated him was more of the formula we're looking for, right? There must have been 20 to 30% of Americans who, to this day, believe it was the CIA. Now, we've confirmed they're right. But when you're orchestrating the magic trick, you say, well, I can live with my fault tolerance is easily 25%. Easily, right? Like I can handle 25% of people complaining. As long as the other 75% go along with the story, what do we have to worry about? Who cares? 25%, we can handle that all day. So when I see these alien stories, that continues to be what I worry about, right? That the pen test is being gauged. I continue to see a sniper scope when these stories come out. It's like, okay, they're just calibrating it to see if it's time. Right now, I don't know if that's true at all. All right, that's just how I'm observing it. So when you see these stories and you see Elon Musk getting attacked, the important thing is, and I believe this, right, that because people aren't buying this stuff, one of the main reasons they aren't buying this stuff is we do have so many more news sources, events, right? Bitcoin events, one of the biggest sources that I know of. But the All In podcast guys did an event this weekend as well. And this is actually a much bigger change than people realize, right? This is the brain trust of San Francisco. This is an entire area of America that wasn't even playing the game 4 years ago, right? They were not even playing the game. They thought Hillary Clinton was going to be a great president because we lived in a democracy, and then Joe Biden was going to fix America's image abroad because he was a better person than Trump, because they had been psyoped, right? They had been completely rolled and manipulated. But that a whole portion of the population now that aren't Trump fans, this isn't the same dichotomy. It isn't the same switch. It really looks more like the green and orange calibration or tension that we've been waiting for. Just one second. Sorry, I got all kinds of broken glass back there. So So the conference that the All In podcast guys did, to me, is just another sign on how much things are changing and how quickly they're changing and how positively they're changing. Now, it's not the only sign, right? The ones that I have here, the sign that I have here. Let me show you. I'll bring it up. Is from Walter Kern, right? So this guy, can't even really read it, huh? This isn't going so great, but we're going to try anyway. So this Walter Kern guy is Matt Taibbi's co-host on his podcast. Now, of all the people with maximum credibility, Matt Taibbi's got to be at the top of the list because Matt Taibbi has even got his own problems with Elon Musk. He's got his own tension with Substack and the whole X argument, right? So of all the people that have credibility, right? Even if you believe some of the criticisms that people give to Elon Musk, even if you think, oh, he's just in it for his own bags, he's just in it to push his own companies, he's also going to be some kind of cyborg theocracy. You know, you hear this complaint that it's a cyborg theocracy that he's pushing for, and you'll hear people say, you know, it's that's where the difference between Bitcoiners and Elon Musk exists. I can buy all that, right? That's fine with me. But the person who most credibly occupies that space, not the cyborg theocracy part, but the part where you could criticize Elon Musk, and you should, right? Elon Musk isn't immune to criticism. He doesn't get a free pass. Matt Taibbi would be right there. So Matt Taibbi is someone who's showing a lot of just what a journalist should be, right? Just credible. He's not out there picking fights with people. It's not ego. It doesn't look personal with anyone. He's just trying to call it as it is. And to this day, I think Matt Taibbi is one of the last real journalists in the world. And so this Walter Kern guy and him do a podcast together. And this is what Walter Kern says. And this is what I absolutely 100% believe. And it, to me, shows why Bitcoiners are proportionately so far ahead in this race in World War III, because we're going to get to it, right? So this is what he says. Those who aren't buying it, the packaged political and intellectual model enforced from above through censorship and orchestrated bullying and nudging, are creating a new culture. So what he's saying is the people who aren't buying it are creating a new culture, right? Messily, with much improvisation and difficulty, but more and more effectively. The times, they are changing again, right? So Walter Kern has it exactly right. He has it exactly right, right? The culture is changing. When you see things like All In Podcast having an event, a very successful event, when you see the types of themes they were talking about and the type of tools that they're giving the audience, what I start to see is this idea of talent stacking, right? It's something Scott Adams talks about all the time. It's something that I recognize as being one of the most important things you can do as a Bitcoiner, even, is to think about the talents you have, the talents you don't have, what happens when you add a new talent to the combination of talents you've already got, right? Because it isn't about being number one in one thing. It really is about being pretty good, right? Top 10% or whatever in multiple different subjects. And if you can do that, the combination of those talents can make something really unique in the world, right? And if you go to the Javier Milei interview with Tucker Carlson, Tucker asks him that question, like, why are you so popular, right? What makes you so popular, and what is it about you? Because he says a year ago, no one even knew who you were, Milei, right? And now all of a sudden it looks like you're going to be the president of Argentina in October. You're leading in the polls. You're the number one guy. What does it all mean, right? So Javier talks a little bit about his background. He says, I was a soccer player, I was in a rock and roll band, and I'm an economist, right? So it sounds like just three simple talents, right? You wouldn't think too much of it, right? Soccer player, rock and roll band, and now economist. But when you add all of those talents together, you do get a very special combination, right? It's particular for Argentina with the soccer. I think that does bring a certain amount of credibility. They're a soccer-obsessed country, right? But it's not just the, oh, I'm good at sports. What I see in that talent stack is also, and you see where it brings him to, right? You see what his real political cachet is, his real political, the thing that makes him stand out is the irreverence, right? First of all, the hair, right? That's, people can say, oh, clowny, but remember, Trump did that too, right? People, when I used to describe Trump to people in the early days of the 2015 election, I said, you're dealing with an artist here. You're not dealing with a real estate developer or a politician. You're dealing with an artist, and you might not like the aesthetic. You might think the aesthetic is stupid, but he's the rich artist and you're not. Right? He is the one who wrote the art of the deal. Now, I've come to understand over time that the actual art form that he is world class at is persuasion. But a lot of that persuasion is based on irreverence. It's based on the contrast you get from irreverence. It's based on him laughing and mocking. Remember his irreverence to John McCain, right? People who don't remember what it was like at the time, there was a lot of people who were never down with a John McCain candidacy, a John McCain representing the Republicans, right? I come from that world, right? I come from the world who are like, what the hell is anyone doing supporting this guy, right? And Trump was the first one to be so irreverent about his place because he wasn't a hero. He was just captured by people, right? Now you could say, oh, you were tortured and that's great and it made you a hero because they tortured you for years, but we don't know anything about that, right? Now, I doubt it was I don't want to go where John McCain went and I'm not interested, right? But it doesn't make you a hero. Trump was the first one to say it, right? I like people who don't get caught, right? That's funny. So you get Milei, and to me, what I see is the irreverence and the ability to laugh and the ability to be so different. Because you see one of the viral things he's got is all the departments he's going to destroy, right? That one's stupid. He calls socialists, parasites. There's no respect. There's no intellectual interest that he shows. There's no curiosity. He just calls them all dupes and all this stuff. And because of his irreverence, he's getting a ton of support, and it looks like he's going to win, right? And when I think of the talents that he's got, and you put into context the talents that you need in order to be successful in World War III, right? The soccer again, the rock and roll piece and the economist piece. What I see are the three pillars of being successful in World War III, which are things we talk about all the time here. Like, first of all, the economist part is the financial literacy part, right? Now, Bitcoiners and Bitcoin meetups and Bitcoin events, and to bring it back to this idea of building a new culture and it being messy and the All-In podcast, Bitcoiners meeting the way we have for over 10 years now has created the most successful financial literacy education program in the history of the world, right? Things that used to seem mysterious, mystical almost to people, now seem very obvious and easy to understand, right? Derivative markets, foreign exchange markets, all of that stuff used to seem like a strange alien language to many people before. But Bitcoin has made all of this accessible. It's made people understand what exactly is going on at central banks, because it's a confusopoly otherwise, right? This stuff is really complicated if you learn it in universities with the type of people who are going to roll you, with the type of people that are going to tell you it's always sunny in their Potemkin village. That's the Krugmans and all of these folks. These are the professors that are teaching people, right? They don't know what they're talking about. And if they do, they're going to make sure what they're talking about aligns more with their objectives and goals. It isn't straight education, right? They're not really teaching you financial literacy. They're teaching you something else altogether, right? Even Janet Yellen. Remember what Janet Yellen is known for? I've mentioned it before on the show, right? Janet Yellen's big contribution to academia, which paved the way for her to get all these Treasury Secretary, whatever jobs, is that she basically said there is an optimal rate at which you can crack a whip. Right. So her whole thing was, what happens when you give someone a raise, and how do you optimize that raise to be the right amount that gets them more work, and not too much that they can become lazy, and not enough that they become lazy. Right. So what she just proved is that there's like an optimal amount of reciprocal debt that someone will feel when you raise their salary, that they'll owe you more. So it's literally optimizing the whip cracking. That's it. That's what she's known for. So is it an honest economist take? Not really, right? It could be interesting, I guess, right? It wasn't as evil as it sounds, but that's more or less what it is. So we've got a new culture. The pillars of that new culture to me are financial literacy. That's the first. But to go back to what Milei said, right? The rock and roll and the soccer. The soccer, of course, is something we all understand in Bitcoin, right? It's the physical health, it's the diet, it's the exercise, it's all those things. I think Bitcoiners are, along with the bro science people, way ahead on that, and that continues to be one of those important cultural pillars that we stand really above most of the other people in the world right now, right? Because Bitcoiners are embracing all kinds of dietary changes and dietary fixes, and you can see health sort of proliferating throughout the Bitcoin community at an accelerated proportional rate compared to anything else I've ever seen, right? I'm involved in all kinds of subcultures. Unless you go specifically to the exercise culture subculture, which can be unhealthy, right? The exercise culture can also have its excesses and its unhealthy characteristics. The Bitcoiner is not exactly calibrated to bodybuilding per se, but definitely calibrated to healthy eating, healthy living. So, but the second one that I wanted to mention, right, was that rock and roll thing that Milei was talking about, and that to me is a combination of media literacy and irreverence, right? And his ability to, and now media literacy, right? It's all media, right? Music, hot, cold media. These are all forms of media, and the idea that the most beneficial media comes from some newspaper or television broadcast has long been dispelled. It can certainly come from music. It can certainly come from rock and roll. It can certainly come from punk rock or any hip hop and any other form of music, really. Americans have understood that for a long time. That's why I continue to mention that America's greatest invention, beyond the rockets and the microchips and all that, might be American music, right? American music has always been a way of protesting, a way of expanding the mimetic culture, the mimetic ideas. Things spread much more virally with music than they ever will with the New York Times or the Washington Post or anything like that. So suddenly you get what I think are very clearly the invisible hand, to me, ends up being the talents that Bitcoiners are cultivating on a daily basis, the art appreciation, the aesthetics, the healthy living, but importantly, the media literacy and the financial literacy. And I'll throw energy literacy into there because they're all kind of mixed, right? Financial literacy and energy literacy are and media literacy, of course, they can be tightly bound as a intellectual package, right? Now, when you combine all of these things, right? When you combine all of these talents and you measure them against the claws of the state, right? That's the fight that we're engaged in. And it looks like, anyway, that our own literacy and our own capacity is helping us navigate this much, much better. People always ask me, what's a crash going to look like? Well, I say, look, it really just looks like a psychological breakdown of us being able to measure and understand prices of things. It's houses. If you're exposed to that world, it's going to be hard to catch up, right? It's going to be hard to make sense of what's going on because the money itself is broken, and it's been broken for a long time. And the effects of broken money have been felt in real estate. It's been felt in energy policy. It's been felt in consumption. It's been felt in foreign politics through foreign exchange, and globalization through altered supply chains and manipulated supply chains through the Forex market, and all of these things. So the situation Bitcoiners find themselves in are, as a group, a small group but growing, of maybe the only people that can sort of understand what's going on at a rate that makes us an effective subgroup, because we mostly collectively are oriented and situated in this big time of change, right? Much different than everyone else who's just getting rolled from psyop to psyop. Aliens, right? All kinds of crazy things that they don't even believe in, right? That just keep popping up, right? What, right? More masks, aliens. It's just that, right? So, but the the capacity that Bitcoiners have to understand the economy and understand what's going on, and to have that financial literacy talent in our talent stack, like Milei has, is one of our greatest assets. And if you look at what's going on, this is Wall Street Silver talking about the Federal Reserve and commercial banking. How many people in the world understand these implications besides Bitcoiners? It's not a lot, right? It's really not a lot. Here's what Wall Street Silver says, right? And this is what's going on today. Now, remember, I used to go on the mainstream media in 2019, and I told them that this, what he's talking about here, was not going to stop. It was going to continue for years. And it's the repo market, and it's the subsidy paid by the Federal Reserve to the commercial banks in America to keep them alive. This is a defibrillator. That's how I described it on television in 2019. I said, this is a defibrillator for a broken, dead system. And the mainstream media at the time was like, it's a technical thing and you don't understand. You don't understand. It's just banks doing technical stuff. What's the matter with you Bitcoiners, right? I said in 2019, either something big happens and we print a shit ton of money to paper this over, or the system crashes, right? So what happened? I didn't know COVID was coming, right? But I said there would be a reason to print. We got one. Here's what Wall Street Silver says is going on right now. The Federal Reserve is losing $758 million per day paying interest to commercial banks on the reverse repo and interest on reserves. The losses just reached 100 billion with a B, right? So they're losing almost $1 billion a day. They're subsidizing the system. The defibrillator costs $1 billion a day to run, right? To inject electricity into a zombie body costs the system 100 billion US trash tokens a day, right? To keep a zombie alive. So he goes on, before all these wild games started, the Fed would send its profits to the US Treasury each year. It was usually a few $1 billion per year, but now the Fed has massive paper losses on their bond portfolio and massive daily losses on their money it has to pay to commercial banks to keep the system from falling apart, right? So at the same time, you've got the city of Chicago, right? How about this, right? Chicago running out of money, the growing cost of the migrant care tied to the city's projected $538 million budget deficit. So the city is down almost $600 million just a day in the repo markets. It's just a day in the repo markets for Chicago, right? And it turns out they're paying, the investigation looked into it, right? This is in the mainstream. This is an NBC, right? The bulk of the money, more than $56 million, went to favorite healthcare staffing, right? They've got a facility manager who made 14,000 US trash tokens in 1 week. They have a nurse. I love nurses, right? This nurse made 20,000 US trash tokens during a week of work in December with the migrants in Chicago. The shelter's invoice manager had the $14,000 one. Everyone's making like $200 an hour, taking care of immigrants, right? Taking care of refugees. Now, I don't want refugees to be ignored and all of that stuff, but there was a cost to the border and no one was capable of having the conversation, right? There's a cost benefit, right? That no one has taught anyone these economic things, but Bitcoiners understand cost benefit. They're not going to get rolled on an emotional argument because cost benefit is part of the calculus, right? You always have to do a cost benefit. That's what is not taught at all in the education system. That's part of the old culture that's dying. They can't even do basic cost benefit analysis. Basic cost benefit analysis. That's 101 to anyone in business is a cost benefit analysis, right? When I worked at Kraken as a strategist, cost benefit analysis was everything. That's what we did all day. It was just, what is this going to cost? What is it going to give us? Right? What's the benefit? Right? That's the name of the game. We did it every single day. So the talent stacking, the invisible hand, to me, is literally Bitcoiners' ability to understand these financial arguments, not get rolled by emotional arguments around what about refugees, right? None of that stuff, right? It's a reverence to the old system. It's laughing at it, right? You got to laugh at the old system. Biden is hilarious, right? And what I love now, so they got charges on. They got charges on Hunter for the guns, right? They're going with the gun charges, right? He's indicted on guns. And everyone's saying it's an obvious smokescreen. The point is to indict him on something to make it look like they're doing something, right? But what's going to be hilarious is most, I think, Republicans are going to be on Hunter's side. Guns for you too, Hunter, buddy. Come on. Like, I have a problem with the government going after Hunter's guns, right? So what? So what about the guns? So Again, you're not going to get people. I think some people are going to get rolled by it, but most Republicans are going to say this is bullshit in another way, right? And I'm not trying to cast Republicans as enlightened here, but a lot of Bitcoiners are going to say the same thing, right? That this is clearly what it looks like. This is media literacy in a nutshell. This is what running smoke screens, running cover, what running an op looks like. So now that we understand it, we're going to be able to pivot. We're going to be able to fix it. We're going to be able to talk about it much more than we could have in other circumstances or scenarios. And then finally, right, the invisible hand being these talent stacks and what happens when you combine all of these things that we're learning as a subculture and a messy sub-community that's growing out of a decayed and dying old culture. Vivek had it perfectly, right? So I had Billy share, one of our Breakup gang folks shared a video of Vivek the other day talking about what he's going to do to the administrative state, what he's going to do to the claws of the state and how he's going to claw them back. And he came back with a really great outlook on how it's done. And really, you know, if we could summarize policy objectives that we have, you know, gathering here every morning as the Breakup gang, it looked a lot like what Vivek is asking for. What we've been saying for a long time is that World War III is really just about turning off the machine of World War II, right? World War II was won by creating the administrative state, by creating the fiat world inside of the US state, funding it, paying for it with the big you know, the New Hampshire thing with the, I go there all the time. The what's it called again? The resort in New Hampshire, the Bretton Woods, right? The Bretton Woods situation, right? Really funded the administrate. It funded the industrial war machine. It funded the industrial censorship machine. All of that came from that world. We've been saying a lot that we basically left running the World War II machine, the aircraft carriers, all of it. And that's brought us to the world we're in now. So that World War III is really the state versus you. It was really not nation versus nation, but the admin state versus the population. And what it looks like is exactly what we talk about here every day, and what Vivek put in his speech, and what his prescription is, and what he's going to do if he becomes president, what he's going to do to eliminate the administrative state. So it looks like Bitcoiner talent stacking has primed us for exactly what Walter Kern said, right? A new culture that is emerging inside of the old one that is not going to take the top-down nudges, the psyops, the low awareness information, the alien stories, right? We're not buying papier-mâché aliens from Mexican congressmen. That's not going to happen, right? So there you go. That's what we got. So we're gonna be cutting it a little short today because I'm gonna go interview Tur Demeester. We're going to be on Spaces in about 15 minutes. You can find us, of course, on X. So Tur and I are going to be talking about Europe, right? Europe. How Europe is going to do with this change. So it's a bit more of these types of things. I'm going to read some of the comments here, and then we're going to get out of here. All right. Morning, freaks. Get your corn off the exchanges. Indeed, Wild Hustle has it right. Wild Hustle has it right. I don't like this PayPal getting their overpaid fee return. Feels like an attack vector of the state to accidentally send you a bunch of Bitcoin. Yeah, I don't like it either, Tommy. That they paid, what was it? They paid 20 Bitcoins or something like that for a transaction of not 20 Bitcoins. And I agree, I don't like it. But it is just socially organized, though, if I'm not mistaken, Tommy. Like, it's just someone being nice, right? But it is an attack vector. Yeah, I wouldn't call it a clawback. They're just gonna redo the trade, right? So I think it'll work. I'm not too worried, but I don't love PayPal. That's for sure. I debunked it as soon as I heard. Didn't even need to send them. No. Good morning, fan. Good morning, CK. Hope you're doing great, man. Hope you're doing great. Good morning, CK. Yes, a trick. Into a spell, into magic, into Mockingbird sheeples. Yeah, that's what we're seeing. Felipe, Biden is the same brainwave of the alien. Did you see that? Who was it that made that? You know, the Biden. You know, Biden's like his stupid face. Someone papered that to be the papier-mâché and put it on the alien body. It went viral yesterday. It was great. Right? Space Mummies, good stuff. It's the threshold thing again. The ogres. Yeah, yeah. Good morning, Christine. Hope you're doing great. Hope you're doing great. P-Man Van, rock and roll Bitcoiner. That's what he is, right? There you go. It takes real courage to be first. Yeah, be different. Be different. Jeremy, there's probably more to McCain's talent stack than getting caught. Yeah, I don't want to. So, I didn't like much of McCain's other policies. Right, I was in general not a McCain fan. So, indeed, I don't want to make him sound like a complete jerk. I like his daughter. The daughter is like, she's cool. She's not a Trump fan, but I get why, and I think she's more or less honest. What I mean is, I don't think she's a liar. I could get that one wrong. I disagree with her about a bunch of stuff, but I was always a fan of hers. I can't remember her name right now. Meghan McCain. Yeah, Meghan McCain. So, look, if the daughter is any indication, he's not evil, right? He's not evil. But it was more the irreverence that Trump displayed in getting booed and taking shit for saying it. But it's what he meant, right? Move to Bitcoin Landia. We're there. We are in Bitcoin Landia. Milei will explode the political narrative. Milei, yeah, in all South America. I think so. He's very, very powerful, right? 1 billion. 1 billion. They're losing $1 billion a day. Hello all. Hello, Tom. Thanks for another great BTC safety meeting. We're doing it, man. Yeah, I'm the age thing is great for a candidate, right? As 38, he's what the political system needs, new blood and a swift kick in its ass. Yeah, I was really impressed just with his presence. I got to hang out with him in Miami, and we chatted a bit, and looks you in the eye, very sincere, very engaged, energetic. It's what you want to see. And he came after RFK, and so he didn't quite have the same presence and energy as RFK. He came a day later, but intrapersonally, great stuff, right? Great stuff. I want to believe in Bitcoin, not aliens. We love the aliens. Come on, we love them. All right, team, come see me on Spaces. I'll be there with Turdemeester, who's great, right? Tur will have all kinds of fun stuff to say. Speaking of talent stacks, his is one of the best in Bitcoin. And if you're looking to mimic or emulate anyone's talent stack, I would say that Turdemeester should be at the top of your list, because he's a great guy and really smart, really talented. All right, everyone. Peace.